My name is Roland Watson. I've been a Burma activist since 1994, when I first visited the country. Why Burma? Because the people are among the nicest and most peaceful that I've ever met, and because they have been brutalized by a ruthless military dictatorship for the last 55 years. I've done all sorts of initiatives and have worked with many different groups, including the Free Burma Coalition, the Karen National Union, the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, the All Burma Federation of Student Unions, and the Free Burma Rangers. I also did a photo show about Burma for Amnesty International at a European summer festival, and another photo show at a group of American universities. I wrote a basic guide to the democratic system, Lessons in Democracy, that has been translated into Burmese, Chinese, and other languages. The Burmese translation, the country's first guide to democracy, has been downloaded over 20,000 times. My focus has always been to help organize a popular resistance for freedom. Burma has countless problems, but they all stem from the dictatorship. If the people remove the generals and install a truly democratic system, the problems can be solved. The dictators, and this now, unfortunately, includes Aung San Suu Kyi, are all members of the largest group, the Burmans or Bamar. The country has extraordinary ethnic diversity, although we don't have a good count of the various group populations, because Suu Kyi refuses to publish the ethnicity data from the national census that was conducted 3.5 years ago. The Burman dictators practice an ultranationalistic and fascist philosophy and have sorely repressed the other ethnic groups. The Burma Army, through its notorious Four Cuts campaign, has committed crimes against humanity for decades, including against the Karen, the Karenni, the Shan, the Kachin, and others. Because of the regime's extremist violence, I felt the best course of action was to try to assist the country's ethnic nationality resistance groups and their struggles in self-defense. The way to freedom for Burma is popular revolution, people taking to the streets, combined with armed rebellion. All of my work and projects are published on my website, dictatorwatch.org, and my Facebook page. The actions of the Burma Army in the ethnic nationality homelands of northern and eastern Burma have been so reprehensible that they constitute nothing less than a colonial war of oppression. The Army crimes in these areas under the Four Cuts program are so severe that some legal analysts have called them genocide. Burma's ethnic diversity is a consequence of its topography, of its vast mountain and valley terrains, and the groups that established themselves therein over the millennia. It was never even a country during this entire historical period. Burman kings used violence to create a series of empires in the valleys and marched into some of the mountains, but they were inevitably pushed back. The country was only instituted formally after Britain conquered the last Burmese empire because it attacked India. Burma as a nation is a British legacy. When the British left following World War II, the Union of Burma was created through the Panglan Agreement between the Burmans and the Shan, Kachin, and Chin. While the country's other groups did not participate in the agreement, many of them gave it their tacit acceptance. Burma's military regime has now launched a war against the Rohingya people of northern Arakan state in the west. This war has been so ghastly that there is no question, none at all, that it is a genocide. In less than 2 months, over 300 villages have been burned to the ground. Over 600,000 people have fled, half of them children. While there is as yet no good count of the Rohingya who have been murdered or otherwise died from disease, starvation, and drowning while on the run, the number of orphans estimated to be 20,000 or more, implies that the death toll could be as high as 40,000. As a comparison, in the recognized Bosnian genocide, 8,000 people were murdered and an additional 30,000 forced to flee. In displacement, the Rohingya crisis in the last 2 months is 20 times as large. I made my first Rohingya friends about 15 years ago, and have been closely following the group's situation since then. I tracked the genocide and wider anti-Muslim pogroms that began in 2012, including writing a timeline of the violence and advocacy pieces against it. I developed a wider collection of Rohingya contacts, and for the last 2 months have published short field notes about different Rohingya villages just after, and in some cases even during, when they were being attacked. This isn't the first regime violence against the Rohingya. During and after World War II, the group, and a few others, sided with the British. The Burmans, and also the Rakhines from Arakan State, sided with the Japanese. Both have hated the Rohingya ever since. In earlier purges starting in 1978, 1991, 2012, and 2016, some 875,000 Rohingya were forced to flee from their homes in Burma. This has now reached 1.5 million, or approximately 75% of the group's entire population. That's how severe the treatment, the genocide of the Rohingya has become. The dictatorship and Aung San Suu Kyi argue that the Rohingya are not even citizens. Indeed, they formally lost their rights to citizenship in a 1982 regime law. But under international norms, all Rohingya, since they were born in Burma, and also since they have ancestors there going back many generations, of course have the legal right to citizenship. The Rohingya genocide is one of the world's worst and still growing humanitarian crises. It demands recognition and action. It is self-evidently a genocide, as the dictatorship clearly wants to destroy the entire group, including through killing its members, causing serious bodily and mental harm, inflicting conditions calculated to bring about the group's physical destruction, and imposing measures to prevent new births. In other words, 4 of the 5 acts specified in the Genocide Convention. The United Nations is now investigating the crisis, and a citizens' commission run by Bangladesh judges is interviewing 10,000 survivors as well. This will ensure that the evidence collected of the genocide meets judicial standards, and that there is no possibility of a UN cover-up. The steps to resolve the Rohingya catastrophe are difficult, but they are also clear. The actions of Burma's military dictatorship must be called genocide by world leaders and bodies, starting with the UN. Pressure sufficient to get the dictatorship to cease and desist in the genocide must be imposed by any and all means necessary. This includes diplomatic pressure, economic, and if need be, military. The Rohingya refugees must receive all the aid that they require to survive until they can return home. Right now, over 300,000 children are at risk of starvation and disease. The government of Burma must also be pressured to allow aid agencies and reporters to reach the remaining Rohingya villages and also the concentration camps for people interned during the 2012 purge. The government of Burma must further be pressured to launch a campaign to end the social hate that is being incited against the Rohingya. Aung San Suu Kyi has been entirely corrupted by her behavior. She and her spokespeople helped lead the effort to dehumanize the Rohingya. She has to go. A law must be passed granting the Rohingya legal citizenship. They must then be given ID cards. A peacekeeping force must be formed and moved into northern Arakan State. Burma Army and police units, particularly the 70-plus army battalions brought into Arakan to conduct the genocide, must be compelled to withdraw. Just as the African Union organized a peacekeeping force for Sudan, Islamic nations, including Bangladesh, Malaysia, Indonesia, and from the Arab world, should begin planning their contributions of soldiers and supplies. OIC should play a central role in organizing this effort. Additional funding should be raised to procure the supplies that the Rohingya people will need to rebuild their homes and lives. Contributions of in-kind materials, building and home supplies, transportation vehicles, farming equipment, and crop seed and livestock should also be solicited. When the peacekeeping force is in place and all the supplies have been purchased and delivered, the border should be opened and the surviving Rohingya should be protected while they return to their burned-out villages to rebuild. As with Yugoslavia, an international tribunal should be formed to indict and try the perpetrators identified in the witness statements, as well as their commanders. In conclusion, I understand that this sounds monumental. It is. But with concerted effort, it can be done. If not, the refugee camps in Bangladesh may grow to 1 million people. There will be an open sore on the region that will never heal, and the life of the residents will be a living hell. For Burma itself, the country will never normalize. It will be a pariah, and the economy will continue to struggle, if not collapse into a depression. There are very few businesses willing to invest in nations with active genocides. Burma may even break up when the other ethnic nationalities decide that enough is enough and choose to go their own way. They have the right to do so under the Panglan Agreement, and as with the Kurds and in Catalan, the number of voices calling for independence will grow and grow. If humanity will ignore and not respond properly to the genocide of a small, peaceful, and long persecuted group, then there is no such thing as the world community. I have to believe this is not true. If you can make a difference as a political or social leader, or an activist or journalist, I hope this presentation gives you a better idea of what is happening, what is at stake, and what needs to be done. Please help do it. Thank you.